My name is Beverly Thornton, and I am 68 years old. 3 months ago, my daughter-in-law looked my son in the eye and called me just clutter. Not to my face, to his, through the kitchen window while I stood in the driveway holding 2 bags of groceries I'd paid for with my own money. My son didn't argue. He didn't flinch. He told me to be out by Sunday. 7 days. That's what 35 years of sacrifice bought me. 7 days and 11 cardboard boxes. But here's what none of them knew. I spent 35 years as a licensed real estate appraiser in this county. I knew every property, every lien, every tax record within 40 miles. And 3 months after they threw me out, I was holding a deed to the house right next to theirs. What happened at their housewarming party? I'll get to that. Welcome back to Alpha Mom Stories, where mothers who were underestimated get the last word. If you have ever been made to feel like you do not belong in your own family, this story is for you. Drop a comment below and be sure to subscribe so you do not miss what happens next. Because what happened next changed everything for me and for them. I started at the county assessor's office when I was 31, a clerk's position, $11 an hour. My husband Jim had just had his stroke. Massive left side paralysis. Our son Derek, barely 12 years old. The doctor said Jim might not walk again. They were right. He lived 22 more years in that wheelchair, and I loved him every single day of them. I worked my way up clerk to assistant appraiser assistant to certified appraiser, then senior appraiser. I evaluated 11,000 properties over 35 years, commercial, residential, agricultural. I could tell you the value of any house on Maple Drive within $5,000. I could tell you which roofs needed replacing and which foundations had cracks just by looking at the drainage pattern in the yard, but I could not appraise my own worth to my son. Jim and I had a routine even after the stroke. I would push his chair out to the front porch on summer evenings, and our neighbor Ruth Peaton would come over with lemonade. Ruth was 20 years older than me, white-haired and sharp-tongued, and she had the most beautiful lavender garden on the block. We would sit there, Jim, Ruth, and me, trimming lavender stems and talking about nothing and everything while Derek rode his bike in the cul-de-sac. Jim died 4 years ago, quietly in the same bed he had slept in for 30 years. I held his hand. Derek drove up from Charlottesville and held mine. 2 weeks after the funeral, Derek sat me down. "Come live with us, Mom. You shouldn't be alone. We have the room." He meant it then. I know he did. His voice cracked when he said it the same way it cracked when he was 14 and promised me at the hospital that he would take care of me. I believed him both times. Derek married Paige Kessler 5 years ago. The wedding was at a vineyard in Loudoun County. I paid $8,400 for the flowers and the catering deposit. Paige thanked me in her toast to Beverly for making this day beautiful. I remember thinking, she's going to be good for him. The first year was fine. Paige cooked on Wednesdays. I cooked the other nights. We shared the kitchen. She called me Mom. I called her sweetheart. Then things shifted. It started with the bookshelf in my room. Paige said they needed it for the hallway, then the reading chair. She wanted to open up the space. Then Jim's photo on the hallway wall. Paige said the frame clashed with the new paint color. I moved it to my nightstand. 3 months later, she asked if I could keep personal items contained to my room. Contained like I was something to be stored. I should tell you about Paige. She was not born cruel. Her family, the Kesslers, were upper middle class outside Richmond. Nice house, nice cars, nice life. Then 2008 hit. Her father's construction company folded. They lost the house, the cars. Everything. Paige was 16 when they moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with her mother Brenda and her younger brother. That kind of loss at that age leaves a mark. I understood that. I even respected the ambition that grew from it. What I did not respect was where that ambition pointed. Paige had 12,000 Instagram followers and a lifestyle blog. She wanted to build an Airbnb rental portfolio, starting with the house next door, Ruth Peaton's old place, which had been sitting empty since Ruth moved to assisted living. And she wanted our house, Derek's house, renovated for content. My room was in the way. It was a Tuesday in October. I know because I had just come from the grocery store. Chicken thighs were on sale for $2.49.49 a pound. And I always bought the good butter. Derek liked the kind with the gold wrapper. I spent $400 to $500 a month on groceries for that house. Nobody asked me to. Nobody thanked me either. I pulled into the driveway. The kitchen window was open. Paige was on the phone. I heard my name. She's just Clutter, Mom. Clutter in my new home. I stood there with 2 paper bags in my arms. The butter was getting soft, the chicken was thawing, and my daughter-in-law was telling her mother that I was something to be discarded. I told Derek it's her or our future, and honestly, the woman still uses a paper planner. She doesn't even understand what we're building here. I did not drop the bags. I did not storm inside. I stood in that driveway for maybe 30 seconds, which is longer than you think when you are listening to your own eraser. Then I walked inside, put the groceries on the counter, seasoned the chicken, made dinner. Derek came home at 6:15. Paige came down at 6:30. Brenda Paige's mother, who had been visiting for the weekend for the 3rd weekend in a row, came down at 6:45. We ate together. I passed the butter. Nobody mentioned the phone call because nobody knew I had heard it. 35 years of appraising properties. I could walk through a house and tell you what every room was worth down to the square foot. That evening, my daughter-in-law appraised me at less than the furniture. I washed the dishes. I dried them. I went to my room, and I started thinking. Saturday morning, 3 days later, Derek sat me down at the kitchen table. He had rehearsed. I could tell because his hands were flat on the table the way people do when they are trying to keep their voice steady. He used to do the same thing as a teenager when he was lying about where he had been. Mom, Paige, and I have been talking. We think it would be better for everyone if you found your own place. You'd have more independence, more space to do your own thing. I let the silence sit. Is this about Paige calling me Clutter? His face went white, then red, then that controlled blankness that told me Paige had coached him for this conversation too. Mom, that's not... She didn't mean it like that. We just need the room. The house is small and we're trying to... When do you need me out? He blinked. Can you be out by Sunday? Sunday 7 days? You're giving me 7 days. I know it's tight. He paused. But Brenda's coming Tuesday. There it was. Brenda was already scheduled. My room was already promised. The decision had been made before this conversation started. Every word out of his mouth was theater. And I was watching from the cheap seats. Brenda's been divorced for 8 months, Derek. She's been here 3 weekends in a row already. She just needs somewhere to... You're replacing your mother with your mother-in-law in the room I've slept in for 4 years, 7 days after you asked me to leave. He looked at the table. No argument, no defense. Just the same silence I used to get from Jim when the doctors delivered bad news. I stood up. I'll be out by Sunday. I did not slam the door, I closed it. There's a difference. Sunday morning, 6 a.m. The house was quiet. I had spent the week packing 11 cardboard boxes. That is what 35 years of marriage and 4 years of widowhood condensed to. Jim's photo, my reading lamp, 6 blouses, 4 pairs of shoes, the appraisal certificate from my 30th year at the county office, a shoebox of letters Jim wrote me from the rehabilitation center, the ones he dictated to the nurse because his left hand never worked again. I packed the way I appraised, methodical, room by room, category by category. Appraiser's measure. We categorize. We assign value. I assigned value to every item I owned. And what did not fit in 11 boxes I left behind? Derek was not home. He had gone to Paige's brother's house the night before. Convenient. Paige was upstairs. I could hear her shower running. I carried the boxes to my 2019 Honda CR-V. 4 trips. Janet. My friend from the assessor's office, 64 years old, retired the same year I did, was waiting at the curb. She did not say anything. She just helped me load. The last thing I did was place my house key on the kitchen counter, right next to the salt shaker. I looked at it for a moment. A brass key. Unremarkable. But it had opened this door for 4 years and now it was just metal on granite. Nobody watched me leave. Nobody said goodbye. I think that was the part that hurt the most. Not the eviction, but the indifference. I got in the car. Janet followed me in her sedan. As I backed out of the driveway, I looked to my left. Ruth Peaton's old house sat empty, overgrown lavender spilling over the fence, a faded for sale sign in the yard. I did not cry, not because I could not, because I was already thinking. Tuesday, 48 hours after I left. Janet texted me a photo at 7:14 in the morning. Her daughter drives past Maple Drive on her way to work. The photo showed Brenda Kessler walking into Derek's house carrying 2 suitcases and a floor lamp, not visiting moving in. I enlarged the photo on my phone. The curtains in my old bedroom window were already different. Cream lace replaced by something floral. Brenda had not even waited to unpack before she redecorated. I called Derek. I see Brenda moved in. Pause. Mom, it's not like that. She just needed a place to 48 hours. Derek, my pillow was barely cold. He had no answer for that because there was no good answer. You cannot explain replacing your mother in 2 days. You can only admit it was planned. She needed help, Mom. After the divorce, she needed my room. There's a difference. I hung up. Janet called 10 minutes later. Her daughter had driven past again. Slower this time. Brenda was rearranging furniture on the front porch. My old rocking chair was gone. An essential oil diffuser sat on the windowsill where my reading lamp used to be. They planned this, Janet said. You know that, right? The timing, the suitcases, the curtains. None of that happens in 48 hours without a plan. I know. So what are you going to do right now? I'm going to finish my coffee. I was sitting in a motel room off Route 29, surrounded by 11 cardboard boxes, drinking instant coffee from a styrofoam cup. I had appraised enough properties in my career to know when a house had been staged for a new occupant. Derek's house had been staged for Brenda before I even packed my first box. I finished my coffee, then I opened my laptop. Sunday morning, my first Sunday away from Maple Drive, I drove to First Presbyterian the way I had for 40 years. Same pew 3rd row from the back, same hymnal, same parking spot under the oak tree, but the looks were different. Helen Patterson, who I had helped with a property dispute 10 years ago, walked past me without stopping. She gave a small wave, then she crossed to the other side of the aisle. Pastor Davis found me after the service. He put his hand on my shoulder. That gentle, careful hand people use when they think you're fragile. Beverly, are you doing all right? We heard you had to move to a care facility. A care facility. Brenda mentioned it last week. She said you'd been getting a bit confused leaving the stove on, forgetting things. She said the family decided it was safest. I looked at Pastor Davis. 63 years I have known this man. He baptized Derek. Do I look confused to you, Pastor? He hesitated. Well, no, but Brenda seemed very concerned. I could have corrected him right there, told him the truth. But I did not because the truth without evidence is just one story against another. And I was building something stronger than a story. I appreciate your concern, I said. I'm just fine. I drove back to the motel room 214. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. Brenda Kessler had told my church, that I was senile, that I was confused, that they had moved me for my own safety. It was not gossip, it was strategy. If the neighborhood believed I was incompetent, no one would question why I left. No one would ask Derek the hard questions. I had appraised 11,000 properties. Now my neighbors thought I could not remember my own address. Room 214, Comfort Inn, Route 29. Exit $1,279 a night. I had appraised houses worth $2 million in my career. Now I was sleeping on a Serta mattress with a stain near the headboard that I chose not to examine. My routine that week, wake at 6, coffee from the lobby. The kind that comes out of a machine that hums like it is in pain. Crossword puzzle from the newspaper rack. Walk to the public library at 9. Use the computer. Walk back. Lunch at the diner across the street. Soup and half a sandwich. $760. I was not destitute. I want to be clear about that. I had $340,000 in savings and retirement, 35 years of steady work, a frugal husband, and Jim's life insurance policy. I could have rented an apartment that same week if I wanted. But in real estate, the worst deals happen when you are desperate. I was not desperate. I was deciding. Every evening I sat on the motel bed with my laptop and did what I had done for 3 decades. I browsed county records, tax liens, delinquent properties, foreclosure notices, assessment appeals. Old habits do not die. They wait. On Thursday evening, I saw a familiar address, 4417 Maple Drive. Ruth Peaton's house, the house right next door to Derek. Tax lien filed by the county. $8,200 in unpaid property taxes from her late husband Walter's estate. David Ruth's son lived in Portland and had not kept up with the paperwork. I read the address 3 times. Closed. The laptop opened it again. I knew that house. I had appraised it myself in 2019. 3 bedrooms, 1,800 square feet. Market value, $185,000. I closed the laptop for real this time, but I did not sleep for 2 hours. David Peaton called me the next morning, Friday 9 a.m. Beverly, it's David. Mom told me to call you. Ruth, 82 years old, sitting in a care facility in Charlottesville with a bad hip and a sharp mind. She had heard about what happened to me. Small towns talk even when the story is wrong. Mom's upset about what Derek did. She wanted you to know. The house is going to county tax sale next month. Dad's estate taxes. I'm in Portland. I can't deal with it from here. I saw the lien. David, of course you did. I could hear him smile. Mom said, if anyone should have that house, it's Beverly. She's the only person who ever appreciated the lavender. I pressed the phone against my ear. That was the first time I cried since leaving Derek's house. Not from sadness from being seen. After weeks of being treated as invisible, moved, discarded, narrated out of existence, an 82-year-old woman in assisted living remembered the lavender. What's the timeline? I asked, professional voice appraiser mode. County tax sale is in 6 weeks. Starting bid will be the back taxes plus fees and penalties, probably $11,000 to $13,000, and the market value. David laughed. You appraised it yourself, Beverly. You tell me. $185,000, maybe $190,000 in a strong market. The kitchen needs updating and the electrical panel is original. Then you know what you're looking at. I did. At a county tax sale, properties often go for 60 to 70% of market value. That meant $120,000 to $130,000 for a house worth nearly twice that. Tell Ruth I said thank you. And tell her I will take care of the lavender. She's counting on it. The public library on Elm Street has 6 desktop computers. All of them slow. All of them with sticky keyboards. I claimed the one in the corner, the one with the best screen. And I worked. Legal pad. Black pen the handwriting of a woman who spent 35 years writing field notes on property assessments. I researched county tax sale procedures in Virginia redemption periods, bidding requirements, registration deadlines. I had witnessed dozens of these auctions from the assessor's side of the table. Now I was crossing to the other side. I calculated savings, $340,000. Estimated auction price, $120,000 to $130,000. That left $210,000 as a cushion. More than enough for repairs, legal fees, and 6 months of living expenses. Well, I figured out the rest. I called Janet. I need a real estate attorney, someone who knows LLCs and property acquisition. What are you planning, Bev? I'm appraising my options. Pause. You found something, didn't you, Ruth's house? Tax sale, 6 weeks. Janet did not ask questions. She gave me a name. Margaret Liu, attorney at law. Office on Main Street. Fees reasonable, no nonsense demeanor. She handled my cousin's rental property setup. She's good. I wrote the name on my legal pad and circled it twice. Here's what Paige and Derek did not understand. They searched for rental properties on Zillow and Realtor.com. They waited for listings to appear with pretty photos and virtual tours. They did not know that some of the best deals in real estate never touch the MLS. They happen in county carrozas and legal notices printed in newspapers that nobody reads in auctions attended by people who know where to look. They were waiting for the front door to open. I was walking in through the county records office. Margaret Liu's office was on the 2nd floor of a brick building downtown. Small, clean, degrees on the wall, a framed photo of her 2 daughters on the desk. I told her my situation in under 5 minutes. No drama, just facts. Evicted by son and daughter-in-law. Moved a motel. Discovered neighboring property at tax sale. Wanted to purchase through an LLC. Margaret looked at me over her glasses. You want to buy a property at tax sale through an LLC so your family won't know it's you. Until I'm ready for them to know. She tapped her pen against the desk twice. Why the LLC? Because my daughter-in-law monitors every real estate listing within 5 miles of her house. If Beverly Thornton shows up in the buyer records, she'll find out before the ink is dry. Fair enough. Margaret opened her laptop. LLC name. I had thought about this. Thornfield Properties. She typed it. Any significance. Thorn something sharp underneath something beautiful. Margaret smiled. The first time I like it. I'll have the formation documents ready in 48 hours. Filing fee plus my fee, $1,200. We discuss lease provisions. Margaret explained, if there are code violations on the property, you as the new owner are responsible for addressing them before renting. If the property doesn't meet rental code in its current state, no one can legally occupy it as a tenant until violations are remediated. I filed that information in the back of my mind. I had appraised houses on Maple Drive for decades. I already suspected that Ruth's house empty for 2 years, maintained by nobody, had problems behind the walls. Beverly, everything we're doing is perfectly legal, just so you know. I know. I've been doing legal things my whole life. This is just the first time it's personal. I had left my old iPad at Derek's house. It was in the nightstand drawer. I had forgotten it in the rush of packing 11 boxes in 7 days. But the iCloud account was mine, and Derek had set it up 3 years ago so I could, in his words, stay connected with the family. I opened iCloud on my laptop from the motel room. Messages synced. There was a group chat I had never been added to. Thornton household. 3 members, Derek, Paige, Brenda, created on September 28th, 2 weeks before Derek sat me down at the kitchen table. I read from the beginning. Brenda, October 1st. When is she leaving? My storage unit costs $180 per month and I can't keep paying it. Paige, October 2nd. Derek's talking to her this weekend. I already called the contractor about turning her room into a home office. Derek, October 3rd. I'll handle it. Just give me time. Paige, October 3rd. Handle it like I showed you. Don't let her cry her way out of this. Brenda, October 5th. Tell the neighbors she's going to assisted living. Nobody questions that. Paige, October 6th. She's just clutter. The sooner she's out, the sooner we start the Airbnb. I already have the listing photos planned for the rental next door. 27 messages. That is how many it took to plan the removal of a mother from her son's life. 27 messages over 12 days. Coordinated, specific, strategic. The eviction was not impulsive. The senile cover story was not Brenda's freelancing. It was agreed upon. The room was promised to Brenda before I was asked to leave. The contractor was called before I packed my first box. I screenshotted every message, every timestamp, every name. I saved them to a folder on my computer labeled 4417, the address of the house I was about to buy. Then I closed the iPad and made my bed. Because that is what you do when your whole world shifts. You make the bed, you smooth the sheets, and you keep going. If you have ever found a message you were not supposed to see, a text, an email, a group chat that changed everything you thought you knew, then you understand exactly how that screen looked to me. If this story is hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button because what I did next with those screenshots is coming up. County Courthouse, Tuesday morning, November 14th. The auction room was on the 3rd floor. Fluorescent lights, folding chairs, a podium with a microphone that buzzed. I had been in this room 100 times from the assessor's side. This was my first time in a bids chair. 7 biters registered. I was number 4, gray blazer, reading glasses, no makeup. I look like what I was, a retired county employee here on business. The auctioneer started at 10 a.m. sharp. Item 74417, Maple Drive. 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 18,800 square feet. Tax lien $8,200. Starting bid $11,400. A flipper from Richmond opened at $85,000. Young man polo shirt laptop open. He had done his Zillow research. An investor in the second row, $95,000. A young couple by the window. She was pregnant. He was holding a calculator. $105,000. The flipper, $110,000. The investor, $115,000. I waited. Patience is the most undervalued skill in real estate. Everyone wants to bid first. The smart money bids last. The flipper, $120,000. Silence. $127,000. I said it the way I used to say property values in court. Flat, factual, final. The flipper looked at me, looked at his laptop, looked at me again. He closed his laptop. Sold to bidder number 4. $127,000. 30 minutes later, the county clerk handed me a receipt and a key. I held it in my palm. Small, silver, lighter than the brass one I had left on Derek's kitchen counter, but it weighed more not in grams in meaning. I walked to my car, opened my phone, one text to Janet. I got it. Janet, how much? $127,000. Beverly, that house is worth $185,000. I know. I appraised it in 2019. I sat in my car for 5 minutes. I did not celebrate. I did not cry. I held the key and looked at it. The way you look at something that has just changed the shape of your life. The key turned. The lock clicked. The door opened to a house that smelled like dust and old wood and something faintly sweet. I stood in Ruth Pitton's living room for the first time in 2 years. Dust on every surface. Ruth's teacup still in the cabinet, the blue and white ones she brought from England in 1974. Walter's fishing trophies on the mantel a little tarnished. I walked room by room. Kitchen. Counters intact, but the faucet dripped. Living room. Hardwood floors scuffed but solid. Bathroom. Tile cracked in one corner. 3 bedrooms, one for me, one for guests, one I would figure out later. Then I went to the backyard. The lavender overgrown wild spilling over the fence into what used to be my walkway on Derek's side of the property line. 2 years without tending and it was still alive, still fragrant. Some things survive even when nobody is taking care of them. I stood in the living room and looked out the front window. I could see Derek's house. 30 feet away, I could see my old bedroom window. Brenda's floral curtains bright against the glass. 30 feet. That is the distance between being discarded and being in control. I called Ruth that evening. The nurse at the facility held the phone to her ear. You got it. Ruth's voice was thin but clear. I got it, Ruth. The lavender's still blooming. I heard her breathe slow, satisfied. Take care of it, Beverly. Walter planted it the year we got married, 1972. I will. And Beverly, yes. Don't let those people next door touch a single stem. I laughed for the first time in weeks. I laughed. I won't, Ruth. I promise. She hung up, or the nurse hung up for her. Either way, I stood in my new house and looked at the lavender through the window. Mine now. All of it. I scheduled the county inspection the following week. Standard procedure for any new property owner. And I had written that procedure into county policy myself 12 years ago. Inspector name, Tom Briggs. Young, thorough clipboard and flashlight. He did not know me, but I knew his supervisor. The walkthrough took 90 minutes. Tom was methodical. I appreciated that. Violation 1, the electrical panel. Original 1978 installation. No GFCI outlets in the kitchen or bathroom in a rental property. That is a code violation. Estimated repair, $4,800. Violation 2, water damage in the basement. A partial foundation crack along the east wall. The side facing Derek's property as it happened. Moisture intrusion, mold. Risk estimated repair, $6,200. Violation 3. Missing smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms on the second floor, $800 to install. Tom wrote it all up. Total remediation cost approximately $11,800 plus reinspection fee, $2,200. Grand total, $14,000. Tom looked at me. Ma'am, you can't legally rent this property until these are resolved. I know, Tom. I wrote that regulation. He blinked. You You wrote 12 years ago. County Code Section 14B Rental Property Habitability Standards. I co-authored it with the building inspector's office. Tom looked at his clipboard, then at me, then at his clipboard again. Well, it's a good regulation, ma'am. $14,000. That is what stood between Paige's Airbnb dream and reality. If she and Derek had somehow acquired this house and tried to list it without inspection, which they absolutely would have done, they would be facing county fines, potential lawsuit from guests, and a cease and desist order. They wanted this house so badly. They just did not want to know what was inside the walls. I thanked Tom, filed the report, added it to folder 4417. Derek's voicemail arrived on a Wednesday 3 weeks after I had bought the house. I was painting the guest bedroom when my phone buzzed. Hey, Mom. Just checking in. Paige wanted me to call and see how you're doing. We were wondering if you need help finding a place. We feel bad about how things went. Call me back. Okay. Love you. I listened to it twice. 35 years of raising this boy. I knew every inflection in his voice. I knew when he was sincere and when he was reading from a script. He was reading from a script. 3 things were missing from that message. First, no apology. Not, I'm sorry. Not what we did was wrong, just we feel bad about how things went. Passive voice. Nobody responsible like the weather. Second, Paige wanted me to call. Not I wanted to call, not I've been thinking about you. Paige dispatched him. Even his concern was outsourced. Third, finding a place. They thought I was still in the motel. They wanted to know where I was. I called Janet. Derek left a voicemail. He says Paige sent him. Janet immediately. He's fishing. They probably heard you checked out of the Comfort Inn and want to know where you went. She was right. I had checked out 2 weeks ago. I was staying in a vacation rental 20 minutes away while the renovations on Ruth's house were underway. No one knew where I was. That made them nervous. I did not call him back. Not out of spite. Not out of anger because there was nothing to say. Not yet. The house was not ready. The inspection was not filed. The lease was not drafted. I was not ready. Timing in real estate is everything. In family, too. Janet forwarded me a link the following Monday. Subject line: You need to see this. Paige's lifestyle blog. The post was titled, Creating Space: How We Transformed Our Home for the Life We Deserve. Before and after photos. The before was my room. My reading chair in the corner. My bookshelf against the wall. Jim's framed photo on the nightstand. My quilt on the bed. The one my mother made in 1984. The after was Brenda's meditation corner. Crystals, essential oils, a macro wall hanging a ring light for Paige's Instagram stories. Paige wrote, Sometimes family dynamics shift, and making room for your own vision means making difficult decisions about shared spaces. We chose growth. We chose our future. And honestly, the energy in our home has never been better. 847 likes, 92 comments, 1 from Brenda. So proud of my girl for putting her family first. Someone in the comments asked what happened to the previous occupant. Paige responded, She found a wonderful care community that suits her needs much better. Everyone's happy. She turned my eviction into content monetized. My displacement got 847 likes for throwing me out. I screenshotted the post, the before photos, the after photos, the comments. Paige's response about the care community. Brenda's cheerful endorsement added it all to folder 4417. Janet called, Are you okay? 847 people liked the photo of my empty room. They didn't know it was mine. They didn't know the reading chair belonged to a woman who spent 35 years serving this county. They just saw a design upgrade. Bev. I'm fine, Janet. Anger with a plan is not anger. It's architecture. Margaret Lou's office. Second visit. The lease was ready. She slid the document across the desk. 12 pages. Standard Virginia Residential Lease Agreement for 4417 Maple Drive. Every clause was by the book. Every provision was what any responsible landlord would include. Key terms. No subletting without prior written approval from the landlord. If someone wanted to sublet to a vacation renter or Airbnb guest, they needed my signature. No commercial use of the premises. The property was zoned residential. Running a short-term rental operation without proper permits and landlord consent was a violation of the lease and local zoning ordinance. 90-day termination clause for unresolved code violations reported by the tenant or identified by county inspection. Monthly rent $1,850. Market rate. I checked. I am, after all, an appraiser. Margaret looked at me. These are all standard terms, Beverly. There is nothing unusual or punitive in this document. That's the point. I am not punishing anyone. I am being a responsible property owner, she nodded. And if your son and daughter-in-law somehow do end up wanting to lease this property, then they'll be welcome to apply. Same application process as anyone else. Credit check references, employment verification, and the no subleading clause standard. Margaret leaned back. You know they wanted this house for Airbnb? I know, and now they can't have it. Not because I said no, because the law says no. I'm just enforcing the lease. That same week, I hired Janet's son-in-law's contracting crew. Fixed the electrical panel first, $4,800. Started on the foundation crack. New smoke detectors went in on day 2. I spent $14,000 making Ruth's house safe and habitable because that is what responsible owners do. Construction trucks on Maple Drive get noticed, especially when they are parked in front of a house that everyone thought was abandoned. The first neighbor to approach was Helen Patterson, the same Helen who had crossed the street to avoid me at the grocery store 3 weeks earlier. She walked across the lawn on a Thursday afternoon holding a casserole dish like a peace offering. I was on the front porch supervising the electrician. Beverly. She stopped at the bottom of the steps. I thought they said you were in a care facility. I sat down my coffee. Do I look confused to you? Helen. She stared at me, then at the house, then at the contractor's truck, then back at me. You bought this house at the county tax sale, set up an LLC. Hired a licensed contractor, passed the building inspection. I paused. Does that sound like someone who forgets to turn off the stove? Helen's face changed. I have seen that expression before, the slow recalibration, when someone realizes they believe the wrong story. Brenda told us at church. She said you were getting confused. She said the family. Brenda told you what she was told to tell you. I have the messages to prove it. Helen stood there for a long moment. Then she set the casserole on the porch rail. I'm sorry, Beverly. I should have called you. Yes, you should have. She nodded, took it, did not argue. Over the next 2 weeks, word spread. Beverly Thornton was not senile. Beverly Thornton had bought the house next door through a legal entity. Beverly Thornton was renovating it herself. Brenda doubled down at a church potluck. Well, I don't know where she got the money. Maybe someone is taking advantage of her. But the tide was turning, and tides do not reverse. The renovations took 4 weeks, $14,000. Every wire, every crack, every smoke detector. On a Friday afternoon in December, I carried the last of my 11 boxes through the front door of 4417 Maple Drive. My house, not a room in someone else's home, not a motel. Mine. Jim's photo went on the nightstand first. Some things do not need a new place. They need the right place. The reading chair went by the front window, the one that looks out onto the lavender garden, and beyond it, Derek's driveway. My appraisal certificate went on the hallway wall. My mother's quilt went on the bed. 11 boxes packed in desperation. 11 boxes unpacked in peace. Same contents, different context. My first morning in that house, I made coffee. Real coffee, not the motel machine kind, and sat on the front porch. 6:30 AME. December air. The lavender was dormant for winter, but I could still smell it faintly in the soil. I could see Derek's driveway. His car was there. Paige's SUV was there. Brenda's sedan was not. She must have been out. I did not wave. I just drank my coffee. Some mornings, peace is its own statement. I had gone from clutter in someone else's home to homeowner on the same street. 3 months, 91 days. The same amount of time some people spend choosing kitchen tile. I chose my entire future. The invitation arrived on a Wednesday. Hand-dressed cream envelope, rose gold lettering on the card inside. You're invited to Derek and Paige's housewarming celebration. Saturday, December 14th, 6 p.m., building our dream. Paige had designed it herself. Instagram W-worthy calligraphy font, a small illustration of their house in the corner. The invitation went to every address on Maple Drive, every single one, including 4417. Paige did not know who owned 4417. The LLC was in the county records, but she did not look at county records. She looked at Instagram. She mailed a blanket invitation to the block because that is what lifestyle bloggers do. They curate, they brand, they perform community. She invited her own landlord to her housewarming party. She just did not know it yet. I held the invitation at my kitchen table, turned it over. Read it twice, building our dream. That phrase printed in rose gold on a house I had helped Derek afford at a party 30 feet from the house they tried to keep me away from. The irony was so thick I could have appraised it. I opened my laptop. Folder 4417, screenshots of the group chat. Inspection report showing 3 code violations. Property deed in the name of Thornfield Properties, LLC. Printed copy of Paige's blog post with comments. I called Margaret. I need a clean copy of the inspection report and the property deed printed. What's happening, Beverly? I got invited to a party Saturday morning, December 14th. I dressed simply, charcoal slacks, white blouse. My mother's pearl earrings, the one she wore to her own retirement party at the school where she taught 4th grade for 30 years. I ate breakfast at the crossword, drank my coffee on the porch. The winter air smelled like cold dirt and faintly lavender. At noon, I sat at my desk and placed 2 keys side by side. The old brass house key I had a spare that I had kept on my keychain for years, and the new silver key to 4417 Maple Drive 1 I had surrendered one I had earned. I picked up the one that mattered now and put it in my blazer pocket. Then I assembled the folder property deed inspection report with 3 violations, documented printed screenshots of the group chat, 27 messages, everyone time-stamped blog post, print out a weapon. Evidence. There's a difference. Weapons are for people who want to harm. Evidence is for people who want the truth acknowledged. Janet called at 4. Are you sure about this? I've been sure since room 214. What if Derek had 3 months to call me with a real apology. He sent one voicemail that Paige dictated. I'm done waiting for him to be the son he promised to be. Silence on the line. Then Janet. Give them hell, Bev. I'm not giving them hell. I'm giving them facts. Hell is what they do with the facts afterward. At 5:45, I locked my front door, tucked the folder under my arm, and walked 30 feet to my left, before Beverly walks into that party. If you have ever held a folder full of truth and walked into a room full of people who underestimated you, then you know exactly what her hands felt like. Steady. If you want to see what happens when the truth walks through the front door, stay right here. Derek and Paige's backyard was strung with lights. Edison bulbs on wire, the kind you see in home improvement ads, a long table with appetizers, a beverage station with hand-lettered signs. Paige's Prosecco punch in the same calligraphy from the invitation. Roughly 40 guests, neighbors, a few of Paige's blogger friends with phones already out filming Derek's coworkers in khakis, and quarter zips, Pastor Davis holding a ginger ale. Helen Patterson near the fence watching me walk in. Heads turned. Half the neighborhood knew by now. Beverly Thornton bought the house next door. The other half still believed the assisted living story. The 2 versions of reality collided right there in the string-light glow of Paige's perfectly curated backyard. Paige saw me first. Her smile did not fall. It froze. There's a difference. A smile that falls is surprise. A smile that freezes is calculation. She grabbed Derek's arm. He turned, saw me. Mom. What are you? I didn't know you. I got the invitation. Derek, I live next door. 3 words. I live next door. His face moved through 5 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion. Recognition. Embarrassment. Fear, and something I could not name. Maybe shame. Maybe not. Paige's grip on his arm tightened. She leaned in, whispered something. He shook his head. Brenda was across the yard. She saw me and set down her wine glass with the careful precision of someone who's just realized she is standing in a minefield. I walked to the beverage table, poured myself a glass of water, and I waited. Paige recovered fast. I will give her that. She was, after all, a woman who had rebuilt herself after losing everything at 16. Resilience was her strength. It was also her blind spot. She assumed she was always the most resilient person in any room. She tapped her glass. The yard quieted. Everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. Derek and I are so grateful to have this community around us. We've worked so hard to make this house our home, a place for family, for connection, for building something that lasts. She smiled at the crowd. Paige was good at crowds, and we're thrilled to share some exciting news. We've been exploring an opportunity with the property right next door, a rental that's been vacant for a while. We're hoping to bring it to life with a new concept. Soon, you'll have wonderful new neighbors handpicked by us. I watched the crowd. Helen Patterson's eyebrows rose. Two neighbors near the fence exchanged a glance. Pastor Davis sipped his ginger ale and said nothing. Paige had not noticed. She was performing. The ring light was on inside her mind. This is what building a legacy looks like, and we want all of you to be part of it. Applause. Scattered. Polite. The kind of applause that comes from people who are not sure what they just agreed to. Paige set down her glass, beaming. I stepped forward from the beverage table, folder under my arm, water in my hand. Are you done? I said quietly. But in a silent yard, quiet carries. Paige turned. Excuse me, I asked if you were done. Because I have something to share, too. 40 faces, string lights, December air. I could hear a dog barking 3 houses down. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. The yard was silent the way rooms go silent when someone steps forward who should not have been there. Paige, the property at 4417 Maple Drive is not available for you to rent or to sublease or to list on Airbnb. I paused. Let the word settle. I purchased it at the county tax sale 6 weeks ago through my LLC Thornfield Properties. Paige's face. I have seen that expression exactly once before in my career. At a property hearing when a developer realized the land he had optioned was in a flood zone. The color drains from the face like water from a bathtub fast and all at once. That's you can't. Derek? What's she talking about? Derek said nothing. He looked at his shoes, then at me, then at his shoes again. I continued, same voice, same pace. The property had 3 code violations totaling approximately $14,000 in required remediation. Faulty electrical panel foundation, crack missing safety detectors. I've already paid for the repairs. If you had rented it in its previous condition, you'd be facing county fines, not Airbnb bookings. I opened the folder, placed the inspection report on the beverage table right next to the Paige's Proco punch sign. Then I reached into my blazer pocket and held up the key. Silver small. The key to 4417 Maple Drive. This is my key to my house 30 feet from yours. I looked at Paige directly. You called me clutter. Clutter in your new home. But here's the thing about clutter, Paige. Sometimes it is actually paperwork, and paperwork has a way of outlasting opinions. I set the key on the table next to the inspection report. I didn't leave because I was weak. I left because I was deciding. Paige's voice went up an octave. You can't just show up, and this is harassment, Derek. Call someone. It's property ownership. I said, not harassment. There's a difference. I turned to the crowd. Not dramatically, just the way I used to turn to the courtroom gallery during assessment hearings. Factual measured. Some of you were told that I was moved to an assisted living facility, that I was confused getting senile forgetting things. I scanned the faces. Helen Patterson. Pastor Davis, the couple from 3 doors down who used to bring us Christmas cookies, that was a lie. I pulled the printed screenshots from the folder. This is a group chat between Derek, Paige, and Brenda. It was created on September 28th, 2 weeks before my son asked me to leave. The messages show that my eviction was planned. My room was promised to Brenda before I was informed, and the story about assisted living was coordinated in advance. I read one message aloud, Brenda's voice in my mouth. Tell the neighbors she's going to assisted living. Nobody questions that. October 5th. Sent by Brenda Kessler. Every head in that yard turned to Brenda. She was standing near the hydrangeas holding her wine glass with both hands. You can't read people's private messages. Brenda's voice cracked. It was on my iPad, Brenda, on the family iCloud. The account my son set up 3 years ago so I could, and I quote, stay connected with the family. Helen Patterson's voice cut through the silence, not loud, just clear. She wasn't confused. She was set up, murmurs is. The kind that ripple outward. I did not need to say anything else. Helen said it for me. Pastor Davis looked at Brenda. Brenda looked at her wine. She did not look up again. What happened next is what always happens when people who have been controlling the narrative suddenly lose control of it. Paige erupted. This is my home, my party. You have no right to come here and humiliate us in front of our friends. Derek, do something. Derek, my son, 38 years old, standing under string lights in his own backyard with tears running down his face. Mom, please, this isn't... You know I love you. It was Paige. She pressured me. I didn't want any of this. Paige spun on him. Don't you dare blame me. You agreed. You sat at that table and told her to leave. You said you'd handle it because you told me to. Because someone had to. I stood still. Folder closed hands at my sides. I did not interrupt. I did not need to. They were doing my work for me. Brenda tried next. The victim card dealt from the bottom of the deck. I'm just a grandmother who needed a roof over her head. After my divorce, I had nowhere to go. I didn't spread any rumors. I was struggling. Brenda, I have the message where you type those exact words. Tell the neighbors she's going to assisted living. Would you like me to read the timestamp again? Silence. Derek again. Reaching. Mom, we can work this out. We're family. You know I didn't mean it like that. I looked at my son. The boy who sat outside the hospital room at 14 and whispered that he would take care of me. The man who stood in his backyard at 38 crying, blaming his wife, looking for someone else to carry his shame. You're right, Derek. We are family. That's what made it worse. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. The facts were loud enough. I addressed my son one last time, the same voice I used for 35 years of professional testimony. Calm, clear, final. I'm not here to punish you, Derek. I'm here because you invited me and because you should know the facts before you make any more plans that involve my property. I picked up the inspection report from the table, held it up briefly, then placed it back down. The lease for 417 Maple Drive includes a no subletting clause and a no commercial use provision. Those are standard terms for residential properties in this county. There is nothing unusual or vindictive about them. They are responsible, and they are mine to enforce. I looked at the crowd, 40 faces, some shocked, some nodding. Helen Patterson had tears on her cheeks. Pastor Davis had set down his ginger ale. My name is Beverly Thornton. I appraised properties in this county for 35 years. I am 68 years old. I paused. I am not senile. I am not confused, and I am not clutter. I placed the folder on the table. Everything is documented. Your attorney is welcome to review it. I picked up my water glass, finished it, set it down next to Paige's Prosecco punch. Thank you for the invitation, Paige. The Prosecco punch looked lovely. I turned, walked the 30 feet back to my own front door, took the key from my pocket, unlocked it, stepped inside, closed the door. I did not look back. I did not need to. I could hear the silence through the walls, and silence after a lifetime of noise is the most satisfying sound in the world. The party ended 20 minutes after I walked inside. I know because I could hear the cars from my front porch doors closing. Engines starting the particular quiet of a street clearing out after something has gone wrong. I made tea, sat in my reading chair by the window, watched the string lights go dark next door, one strand at a time. Over the next 2 weeks, the consequences landed the way they do in real life. Not all at once, but steadily like water finding its level. Paige deleted the blog post, creating space gone. Her Instagram went private. Her follower count dropped from 12,000 to 9,400 within 10 days. Derek called me twice. I answered the second time. Mom, can we talk about the house? The rental situation? You can talk to my property manager. Her name is Margaret Liu. I'll text you her number. Silence then. Mom, that's how it works. Derek, business is business. Brenda moved out of Derek's house within 2 weeks. She told people she was visiting family in Georgia. She did not come back. The Airbnb plan died quietly. No property to rent, no income stream. Pages projected $38,400 a year. Gone. On a Sunday morning, 3 weeks after the party, I walked into my backyard with garden shears. The lavender stalks needed trimming for spring. I cut them carefully the way Ruth taught me. Short angled cuts just above the new growth. I called Ruth. The lavender is trimmed and ready for spring. Are you all right, Beverly? I'm all right, Ruth. For the first time in a long time, I'm all right. 2 weeks after the party, a knock on my front door. Sunday afternoon, Derek alone. No page. No prepared script. Just my son standing on my porch in a jacket that needed ironing, looking 10 years older than he had in September. Can I come in? I let him in, made coffee. Set out 2 mugs, the blue and white ones from Ruth's cabinet that I had kept. We sat at the kitchen table. He stared at his hands for a long time. Then he spoke. I'm sorry, Mom. I waited. Not the kind of sorry Paige wrote for me. Not the kind that comes with, but you have to understand my sorry. What are you sorry for specifically? He looked up. His eyes were red. For letting her call you that, for not standing up when I should have, for the group chat for Brenda, for the voicemail that wasn't even mine, for all of it. I nodded. That's a start. I kept telling myself you'd be fine, that you're strong, that you always figure things out, and you did. But that shouldn't have been the test. No, it shouldn't have. Silence. The coffee cooled. What do you want, Derek? I want to fix this. Sorry is a word. What are you going to do? He did not have an answer. Not yet. I didn't expect one. Real change is not a speech at a kitchen table. It is behavior repeated over time. And we were at the beginning of that timeline, not the end. I love you. I said I will always love you, but you need to earn your way back into my life. Not with words, with consistent visible action. And that takes time. He stood, hugged me, held on too long. The way a boy holds onto his mother when he knows he has been wrong. I let him, then I let go first. I walked him to the door. He looked back once from the porch. I'll do better, Mom. Show me. He drove away. I closed the door, washed the mug, sat back down. The lavender was visible through the kitchen window, dormant but growing beneath the surface. Monday morning, my porch black coffee, the crossword. December sun, thin and pale, making the frost on the lavender stalks shine like glass. I could see Derek's house from here. Brenda's floral curtains were gone from my old bedroom window. Bare glass, like the room was holding its breath, waiting to see what came next. I did not leave because I was weak. I left because I was deciding. And the decision I made to be patient, to be methodical, to let my expertise and my silence do the work. That decision brought me here to this porch, this coffee, this lavender. If someone calls you clutter, remember this. Clutter is just valuable things that have not been organized yet. And some of us spent 35 years learning exactly how to organize. That is my story. 3 months, 1 key, and a house that smells like lavender. If this reminded you that your worth is not decided by the people who take you for granted, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.